This is Kal Kat, the Kal Kat story. And because the internet was down for a full 24 hours, I had nothing else to so I was like, why don't why don't I watch the Transformers thing? And then see if there's any continuation stuff in there. Quite a lot. So, yeah, this story was not intended to be one of those three-part epics originally. It wasn't intended to be a 3 1-hour stories. It wasn't intended to be a trilogy of 1 hour. It was intended to be just one 90-minute Elseworld knockoff story dealing with the stuff in the series. But it just so happens to also coincide with the anniversary of the 40th anniversary of... So there's a 60th anniversary of Star Trek. There's also a 40th anniversary of Transformers the movie and Trans fan film series. So to make several long stories short, this story kind of addresses that. It has nothing to do with trans identity or anything. It's about Transformers. Back when I was about 15, I had a JVC video camera, and I was like, I'm going to film my action figures. I'm going to film little fan films, my action figures. I'm still doing that 40 years later. But yes, I'm going to film the Transformers action figures. I'm going to make a story, and it's going to be, and I'm gonna, So the show was showing constant reruns before the movie came out because they didn't have any new episodes. They were creating season 3. I didn't know that at 15, of course. Season 3 was going to jump, and the movie was going to jump to 2005, and 19 years would just go by in 2005, which they did. The Transformers series in a nutshell thing, what became Generation 1. I was doing my own fan films, the Transformers. They weren't very good, but then again, I was 15. I would just do a stream of conscious improvising thing. I threw in GoBots. I threw in sort of a Gulliver's Travels thing. They became giant sized and small. And I ripped off the Electrum Pond episode. I ripped off... interestingly enough, though, I included Robotech people and Robotech ships from that same time period. And I included the Robotech 65 episode series that aired. And they didn't do any more after that. It was 1985, and 86 they stopped. So they were like, oh, we're not doing any more of those. Yeah. So the Robotech series had stopped. Transformers was going to continue. There's a bunch of other robot shows I could mention, but this is mainly about Transformers. And so I decided to do my own with a video camera. And I filmed them. And I kept those stories. And when I wanted to put them on YouTube later on, I had to strip out all of the audio because I used music in the background, or the audio was really bad. The earlier ones, the audio was just really bad. You couldn't understand what was going on. So I kind of explained in the commentary what's going on in the story. Go from there. I didn't have that many Transformers back then, so I made up the idea of a pact of Autobots, a little group of Autobots put out there. And as they got larger, I called it a myriad. Big words, I wanted to use big words. And a large group of Autobots. By the time the reunion of the cities, 88 came out. Our fan films were plagued with stuff since the beginning. I don't know if this is a 40th anniversary. This isn't really a tribute to that necessarily because you're watching it now. It's not really a tribute. I'm just kind of summarizing stuff. You're watching the trans series, the new version, Legacy. So we have. So in a nutshell, we have this fan film series. It's just fan films. Hasbro was totally not aware of what I was doing with toys. By 1991, 92, they were kind of waning, and they rebooted it as a Transformers Generation 2. They used older toy molds and some newer ones from the England spinoff, and some from the Japanese spinoff. After that, and they didn't go over as well. Mainly because they used old footage and just appropriated it. It wasn't until Beast Wars in 1996 we started up again to do Beast Wars. But in 1992, I also did Trans 2 Intergalactic Guardians. And I was not aware of the Guardians of the Galaxy comic book at all. And I was not aware of the Intergalactic Guardians video game at all. I just took a title that sounded cool. Trans 2. And I also put YouTube versions of those with commentary on. Trans and Trans 2 having nothing to do with anything other than Transformers, shortening the title. And then we went on to do we did during that in '87 we did the Carda saga, in which the cardboard robots. We built their own robot. Originally, David Brown, one of my nephews, was the oldest nephew, was involved in the series and the Carda. But then it was Mark's Cards or John Yeager was involved in the series. Some of the other names from Pine Hill appear in the story, but like Jason Strawberg and Allison King, but they weren't there. I just stole their names and put them in the story. So that's I just put them in the story. We had Tim Cantrell, Timinus, and Jim Buffkin, Fortress Buffkinus, and they're all in the story. And even though Tim is more described as a fortress, big guy, than Jim is. Jim Buffkin was not really a fortress. He's buff, but not a fortress. but he was the Fortress Buffkinus. So there's all the goofy stuff going. So by the 90s, Beast Wars came along, and by 1999 we did a crossover thing where the Blair Witch Project was a big deal in the fall of '99. So we did a Blair Witch meets the Beast Wars meets the Transformers before anybody else did. Nobody else on the planet had done a YouTube fan film, a little before YouTube. Nobody else had done a ready fan film about the Blair Witch parody. No one has since. There is no one since then. Shortly after that, in 2001, we wanted to redo the whole thing with a better early digital processing cameras, beyond the JVC ones, to digital processing with some video. So we did Trans Tech, the Transformers meets Robotech. We had Robotech stuff in the other one, but no, we're actually going to do a crossover with Transformers, Beast Wars, and that current generation. They cross them over and do like a thing. And we did. And, Trans Tech. Transformers meets Robotech. Between 2003 and 2009, with those three movies put together, they were three-hour-long things, roughly 24 episodes altogether. The first one of which had copyrighted music and songs, because sure. But when we went up to put it on YouTube, I re-edited the versions that was the video version, the DVD version, so that it did not include those songs. So it just included its own songs and its own soundtrack. Can't really do that. Fortunately, that was not that hard because they were on little digital video transfer off of Super 8, that video back then, for the first one. The other two were the first one was those weird Betamax Super plug-in tapes from same thing we had in Starcrackers. Well, really outdated at that point. And the third one was the Super 8 ones, Super 8 video tracked. So the video looked a little wonky, a little strange, a little artifacty, but it works in movie 2 and 3. It works, so it's fine. The aspect ratio is meant to be what it is. It's TV aspect ratio. A DVD release of that. In 2014, we released the whole thing onto YouTube. The 24 episodes that became the channel. That's the reviews channel, Weird Kitty 07 for the Transformers. They were originally on another one, but then they went up on that one. Yeah, the 2012 channel died. It's gone. The old 2012 channel, the Weird Kitty one. Also in 2014, 2015, Tim came back from semi-obscurity, from not doing any of these. He wasn't involved in the Beast one. He was involved in the Starcrackers. Wasn't involved in the Beast one. Came back for some of the Starcrackers reshoots in 2005. I was thinking, I have an idea. He said, let's do a Robotech Rebels story, like the comic book. Yeah, I knew about Robotech Rebels. So I don't know how we're going to do that. But 10 years later, I figured out how we were going to do that. And I was like, okay, let's just continue after Transtech. Let's do a Space Bridge Transformers thing with it's 2015. but it's also 2046, so it can show what happened to the Robotech people. Rick Hunter gets home. Robotech was 3 discrete Japanese series that were put together to form Robotech. You had Macross Saga, you had Space Cavalry Southern Cross, and Space Climber Matsupido. They were 3 unrelated series. The first one was taking place on Earth, involving protoculture. They meant culture, not a fuel. Robotech changed that. So it's a fuel. So it could go throughout 3 stories. That's the thing the aliens are looking for. It's a fuel, protoculture. It wasn't originally. It wasn't about that. The second one was about a distant planet called Glory, and a colony on Glory, and the Robotech, the Zor Lords. They changed it to the Robotech Masters and put it on Earth in Robotech. Made it Dana Sterling, even though it wasn't originally. Then they had Space Climber Matsupiedo, which they called the New Generation in Robotech, and they decided that one should be Earth, having taken over by the Invid. That is very similar to the original. It was the Inbit, and they were after some sort of energy on the Earth, the Earth Gaia, and that kind of thing. It wasn't protoculture and flowers of life, it was something else that they were after. Some kind of Earth Gaia energy. So that's Robotech. Transformers was more straightforward and like episodic, and they basically said, okay, we're gonna, these are robots crash land on Earth millions of years ago. They're pulled out of a volcano, Mount Saskatchewan, Mount Sedenda in some versions, but it is Mount St. Helens that's where it is. It's supposed to be Mount St. Helens. So they're in Oregon. That's where the Autobot ship is. And I guess the Nemesis is off the coast of that area of the coast of Portland. That's where it is. That explains a lot, actually. Mount St. Helens. That's what it was supposed to be. So they had a lot of this other goofy stuff. And oddly enough, Hasbro was on the East Coast in the Rhode Island area, and they finally did an East Coast show that was called Transformers Earthspark a couple of years ago. So that had some controversy that was drummed up by people that didn't understand it. You have your Robotech Transformers thing, Transformers show. All of that lore wasn't all that familiar, even though I watched it back in the day. Although I was avidly into that back in the day. The fans at Pine Hill heard me as the Robotech expert, the Robotech god. A little about Robotech. Just what I saw. If they paid attention, they would have found it. But they didn't. Not all of them. There's only the guru of space. So the Robotech Transformers. After Beast Wars, they rebooted it during as Transformers Armada, the Armada side of the Unicron trilogy, different Unicron, different stuff. And those were 3 discrete series, like Robotech was. There were 3 discrete series. You had the Micron War, and the first one, the Minicon one, Armada, and you had Energon and Cybertron. I think Energon was first. It's the second one. Energon was the second one. Over there, it was called the fight of the. Yeah, they were looking for the Energon stars and the Unicron planet and all that stuff. So it was that, the Planet Key saga, basically. And they were done as Transformers stories, though, in Japan. The third one was Cybertron. That was actually the Planet Keys one. Oh, that's right. That's right. Even now, Transformers. Okay, Superlink was the Japanese middle one. Superlink. They link together, break apart, link together. Superlink. They have Superlink powers. Third one was Cybertron with the Planet Keys. Different gimmick. I had some of those toys too. I still have some of them. The Vector Prime is from that. I believe one of the Cybertron. There's some other one. I didn't keep all of my Trans. Eventually, I collected a bunch of them, and I gave up almost 1,000 of them to Goodwill when I moved. Mainly the ones that were falling apart, and that went for most of the G1 ones. I kept 1,000 of them, or 800 of them, roughly. So I have a bunch of them, mostly from the Michael Bay and on. I do have some of the other ones. From the 2000. So by 2007, they rebooted the whole thing as Michael Bay. They made Transformers mainstream. It wasn't mainstream until those Michael Bay movies. Say what you will about how cheesy the Michael Bay movies are and how off-putting they seem to be and whatever. They rebooted it. They made it mainstream. They made Transformers no longer a nerd geek thing. They made Transformers mainstream, and yeah, it's mainstream now. These are movies with mainstream live action movies. They weren't, the last three weren't great, but they were mainstream. They did several other shows, Transformers Animated, Transformers Prime, a bunch of other ones, and then spin-offs. Yeah. The first one was the 2001 one, the Transformers Robots in Disguise, called over there Car Robot. That was and then they stole the name and used it again in 2015 in a spin-off of Prime. They did a bunch of stuff. Meanwhile, my fan film series, catching up to that point, were Space Bridge, 2016, the Space Bridge Bioship Mystery, the 1 and 2, and then the Shadow Children, the Shadow Chronicles thing. I took the Shadow, the stuff from Robotech the Shadow, and decided to go on that direction and find out what the Shadow people were, and find them. So there was like a new threat, a new Robotech Transformers threat, and they go out and fight the Shadow people. Only discovered they weren't actually Haydenites, they were Haydnite rebels. They were like evil Haydenites. All the Haydenites weren't evil, just those ones were. Which made a lot more sense. Like, okay, the rebels. Okay. And there'd been this lingering thing, like in '87, they did a spinoff, Robotech the Sentinels. They did one pilot, and no other episodes. They had a large storybook with all kinds of scripts in it. Did that, and there never anything after that. The Transformers fandom, Transfic fandom under several names, came out in the '90s, and one of them was Transformers MUSH. That was one of the places we were on, and yeah, they had Amar Khan and Kal Kat and all that on that, and yeah, there's at least one or two of those old stories still there going around. But yeah, mostly we did stories as well. And yeah, during the thing, so there was the first early online stuff were written stories, basically slash fiction, shipping fiction, Transformers. Most of it pretty tame. They were all pretty tame. The Space Bridge was with Tim, and you brought him back to be in it. But he only had like one line. He just consulted on it. Said, "Oh, you can do the Rebels." Whoa. And the Shadow thing included the Rebels too, so they were. Yeah, the Rebels thing was in there. But old Transformers MUSH in the 2020s. I kept doing these fan film things, kept continuing it. The Space Bridge was so well received on our channels that we have to do it. We have to do something big as we approach 2020. We got to do something big. We found the old discs containing the MUSH archives that we had, confirmed them with other archives that we had, and as well as some of the larger, well-known Trans-Tech names, Transformer names out there, fans, confirming whether we could use some of their stuff if we wanted to. I'd give them a byline, put them in there, and yeah, some of them responded, others just there's nothing. 3 or 4 of them responded. Yeah, so they were all, yeah, you can do that if you want to. It's our old stuff. We don't care. Just don't make it dirty or anything. Oh. Only one person thought we were going to make it dirty. We weren't. Anyway, so Mark's Cards and I decided to update these very Mary Sue like shipping stories, Transformer stories. Mary Sue is a story where the author makes himself the hero. So that's mainly what was going on. All Transformers MUSH created a gold mine for adapting not just episodes of Transformers, which were only half an hour long, but mini movies over an hour long. Mini movies. And the one that we chose first was the epic saga of Robert Powers. Robert Powers, don't really know him, only brief consultation with him, but don't know him. But he wrote a epic saga, over 200 pages long, and we're like, I'm going to adapt that. I'm going to make that the first mini-series of this new series. It's going to be 7 1-hour episodes, totaling, the length of the movie. A little under 1 hour. They were like 7 45, 50-minute episodes. So it was like 270 pages or something. It was over long, and we adapted it. And during the pandemic, pandemic happened, so we did during the pandemic. There was a bit more contact back then. And, the only thing said was, you know, the response to the whole thing was something about some of the characters weren't quite what you were doing, but yours were way cooler. You came up with a Draconis Prime instead of Scattershot being the leader. It's actually way cooler. Yeah, that's better. So, in this story, they harken back to the other one. In this one, so not do it in this one. Yes, they made a target Optimus Prime that was very similar to his Lexius character. So like, oh yes, he's got to be this. But yes, in an homage. 6 years later, he finally got his character. But yeah, yeah, there was Rob Jung, there was Ivy Bonleen, there was Bloodcrow, Belinda Kelly, there was a bunch of other, all these names, Rob Jung, yeah, a bunch of other names, Gabriel Kwan, the trippy alien guy, a bunch of other ones. I could run off a bunch of names, but you don't know who they are. They're just all Transformers MUSH guys, and Bobby Carruthers, Robert Carruthers, and currently Chromeo and Artemis and Cavalier, currently from Lexicons. Well, not currently. Those stories are from 2008. The Lexicon stuff. It's a while back. It's 20 years ago. So these are old stories that were updated and given a byline. And so this particular episode and the one just before it are completely new, though, and they just incorporate some of those ideas. Yeah, there was no script for this episode, as you probably can tell. But yeah, sometimes we do that. But yeah. After doing all Transformers MUSH for 2 seasons, spun it off with Lexicons. What we also did around the same time, we did Lexicons books as well from the fan films. Those are slightly later than they mainly ran from stories from 1994-95 roughly, to all the way to 2002, 2003. Some of them went to 2006. That were that old story. The 2 latest ones were 2008. That was actually some of the newer ones. They're very old stories that are adapted. And this and Artemis Prime did the most. Did a 5-hour series thing that we made into a. It would be a 5-hour miniseries. We made it into a 3-hour story. The 3 1-hour parts, 3 hours. So yeah. And some of the first part of the story is in season part 1 of this summer, and then the other ones in part 2. It's all series together. We also did the underground sequel that we didn't actually do before with the other ones. We were able to do that one. That was from that's the Robbie Carruthers one, I think so. Yeah, she did the Underground Saga. There was a later one that she wrote, 2005 or something, 2006, a spin-off. But yeah, we got to that one. Did that one. So yeah, there's a closure story in there. But yeah, so there's other fan film stories I'm mentioning that you won't know anything about, and it doesn't matter other than we adapted them. We adapted hundreds of them, the episodes. There's been more Kal Kat Transformer fan films than any other fan film guy out there. And earliest than any guy out there. Grandfather of Transformers fan films. There are others out there that can claim, oh, we were out on the internet and YouTube stuff before you, like T-Formers and Cybertron with an S and TF 2005. They were there in 2005, but they weren't posting fan films yet. So, they were posting other stuff. Well, the content guys. And the Basics was a little later. Rodimus Primal was later. MGO might have been one of the earlier ones. He did some fan film stuff similar to this. So it is similar to MGO. In fact, I've referenced him a bunch of times. I was like, oh, I like MGO. Yeah, I like that guy. Yeah. He calls himself the Freaking Geek. He does excellent transformation reviews. Yes, and he's current. And he's done all the other stuff too. extremely helpful when I forget how to transform somebody. He's got the touch like Big Tim had with the Transformers. Some of those newer ones from Armada he couldn't do. Yeah, that Robots in Disguise Prime and Magnus merging thing from RID 2001, he couldn't do that. I couldn't do that either. I gave it to him. He's like, I can't do that. I tried. Oh, it was broken. Oh, that was horrible. And then they did a reissue recently of that with HasLab, and it kind of sucks too. Because, yeah, anyway, so I'm not going to gripe about HasLab. I'm not a shill for them or anything. They haven't paid attention. They're not going to go into Beast Wars stuff at all, really, although I include some in here. Just because it's in there. I do address the episode that Primary did, that Artemis did, as well as with a funny gag in this one. This episode was meant to be, so this is not a recap of like a 40th anniversary recap, really. I was just going into what happened on here. So you put that on there, making of, and that's, this movie was quick and done in a day and a half because the internet was down for 24 hours. So there's, of course, there was a period where sleeping, of course. So the movie was roughly maybe 10 hours. But yes, there was more than 10 hours. But yes, so you have, we're going to do another fan film thing. A Dinobots thing. Didn't think there was enough material for another Dinobots thing. And looked at some of the fan film stuff where they were all like, oh, well, if you make the Dinobots less dumb and have them have lines, then it's kind of interesting what they're doing if you just kind of give them lines. Because normally they just sound prehistoric and like cave people. So I kind of gave them lines. And I could go into how, like, strangely enough, Transformers has, over the years, kind of been on the same wavelength with us, like Star Trek is. They included the Transmetal Dinobot in the one period that was very similar to something I drew. It was a contest. That Transmetal Dinobot was very similar. There was the Requiem Blaster from the Trans Saga is a device. The story is a Decepticon weapon. It originally wasn't a Prime's weapon, but now it is. They put it in the lexicon. But the Requiem Blaster is supposed to be like Megatron's cannon originally. So it's not Megatronus's weapon. It's really Megatron's cannon. But yeah, it's a device that was used in the Trans Saga in '86, but not in the show. They used the cannon in the show, but they never called it directly, this is my Requiem Blaster. So they added that later. But yeah, he had lots of blasters and guns and turned into one. But that one, the sword and the shield, the Sky Boom shield is what they called it later. The sword, the saber that was in there. Yeah, all those things. Yeah, so it was part of the lexicon and part of the thing and the gaming thing and all that back then. It's possible that I heard Requiem Blaster from the game version, but I don't think so. I think actually that's something they came up with at the same time. Weirdly, eerily, name and everything. It might have been on some product back then. It might have been on it might have been Megatron's original description. Maybe that's where it was. But picked up on it, but that's fun. Other ones have been like they've kind of done other things. Usually when we had several different people be a Prime, out of the goofy stuff as a Skyfire Prime, a Topspin Prime, a Sideswipe Prime, just to have different primes. The Power of the Prime stuff that they tried to align continuity, tried to fix. People very similar to me and Parks Cards doing things. The Michael Bay movies directly used his name in one of the movies. I believe it was Age of Extinction. There was a bad guy called Jaeger Or good guy called Jaeger. That's right, the good guy. The guy that replaced Shia LaBeouf's character, played by Mark Wahlberg. Was Jaeger in the two movies. I was like, what the? Huh? I'm like, okay. Just Kate Jaeger. Yeah, I'll borrow the name. Just used it. Yeah, Mark. Yeah, that. What? Yeah, and Mark's cards. Jaeger. That's weird. And Adinger was, of course, Adam. Me. Adinger. But no, I wasn't in the movie, but it's weird that we were kind of in the movie. Yeah. The Battle of Chicago one was creative consultant on by some of the MUSH cast, including when they were putting that together. The one that was in Chicago, that one had some influenced by some of the MUSH influencers back in the day. Yes, yeah, do the Cybertron thing, but do this or that. So the Shockwave thing is weird. Yeah, that was a goofy one with where Shia LaBeouf's new girlfriend was weird. Yeah, that was the Sentinel Prime Dark of the Moon thing. Wasn't that the other one? Age of Extinction Dark of the Moon. Okay, yeah. It doesn't. The first one, the second. Okay, the first one was Shia LaBeouf in the city and the Witwickies and the goofy stuff, and Bernie Mac and whatever. The second one was the pyramids in Egypt and that kind of thing, and they're doing that. And the Sun Destroyer, the introduction of the line continuity primes who were just in the temple, which was weird. And the third one was Dark of the Moon. Yeah. They changed the girl in that. Yeah. They changed the girl in that one. That was the third Shia LaBeouf one, and final Shia LaBeouf one. And that was the one that had a pretender lady in it, and a bunch of other stuff. That was the one that we messed with, the Chicago one. But yes, then they in turn messed with us and put my friend's name in the movie, but the Mark, the next one. So yeah, Age of Extinction, and then you come to Dark of the Moon, and then Age of Extinction, and then Last Night, which yeah. I have some of those. You saw those in the movie. So yeah, there's a lot of goofy stuff. I was not directly involved with Hasbro, the Transformers, whatever. But the fan films are allowed to stay because they don't make any money on YouTube. They don't have any AdSense. And they're action figures. You can play with toys. They can't ban you from playing with toys. They can't do that. So anyway, yeah, playing with toys. I've given advice about fan films. I've been to conventions and things many times. I haven't been to the big ones, though. I haven't been to the BotCon or the TFCon or whatever. That'd be awesome to go to one of those. I will go to one of those if it comes up here. I have to go to one of those. Yeah. I just missed out on the 94 BotCon and the 2000-something BotCon. Didn't get to go. But I get to go to the other ones whenever they have, like, when they, back in the day, when I wasn't moved. I could have gone to, I get to go to the Fanime sometimes has Transformer stuff, but usually there was like a local thing called the Super Toy Show in Fair. They were vaguely associated with Time Tunnel. We bought a lot of toys from them. So we're like, this is Kal Kat, gotta buy some more toys. Yeah, they know, yeah, they know me. And I know of them. And then so there's like, yeah, Time Tunnel would do these conventions, and they would sell a lot of Transformer toys. You can go there and convention. Yeah. And at one point there was other guy doing the Thews Awesome Reviews guys also referenced in the story. He had a Road Rage action figure that was up for sale, up for a bid thing, like a little Road Rage. He does that every now and then. He'll auction off one, giveaway. Do a giveaway. Gives it away. That's who you can get onto because he's associated with Hasbro. He gets like Hasbro gift sets and stuff. Gives away stuff. And he'll give it to Road Rage. And I didn't win the Road Rage, but a guy in San Jose did. And I was all like, ooh, I bet he's gonna sell that. Yeah. And it just so happened the guy went to the Time Tunnel Toy Show. And he was there, and he had the mark the Road Rage, so I got the that's where that came from. But yes, I don't know if it was the same one, but it was darn close. Don't know if it was the same, but it is funny that somebody in San Jose won, but not me. It had to be this. It had to be. I mean, that could be a coincidence, but it's an interesting one. Yeah. One time I got a deal on some Armada Seekers. The kid didn't mark, the salesperson deliberately didn't want to mark the packaging in the Target store to be sold, and it was the SKUs weren't on the package, but it was right there. So I brought it up to the front and I got the SKUs put on it. I bought it. I bought it. Yeah. And then later on, in the current time period, there was a Target one where there was something similar happened. The Galvatron from the movie Galvatron showed up, and the two of us ran over there to get one, and I got it. I got there first, and they're all, oh, the SKUs are off on this one too. Same kind of deal, same Target, different Target, same deal, and so yeah, and so I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I bought it. The Galvatron, I bought the Galvatron, and somebody else from the GameStop down the street at the mall bought the other one. The other Galvatron showed up at the GameStop. But yeah, I was accused of being a scalper one time at a Toys R Us. I wasn't. I just knew when they were going to have stuff. It's a little bit before the internet had, like, now they expect it. Now it's like, okay, they can just go on your phone, look for internet, and see, like, okay, where's this toy at? How do I get there and go over there and get it? But back in the day, you had to look for it a little bit and to show up in advance to look for something. Maybe I look a little too excited when I grab a toy. They're like, oh, it's another one of those guys going to sell it away. No, at one point I said to one of those store interests that I have a toy, and I bought the toy, and it was like, oh, I'm probably just going to keep this and not sell it. That's the problem with my online shop from back in the day. Oh yeah, TJ Omega, who is another YouTuber, is also mentioned. The Plastic Addict store guy from Florida. He's also mentioned. He wanted to do a different thing with Thundercracker, so I threw a Thundercracker in there. So I just thought to put it as a gag in there. But yeah, in the story, and so many years ago, he was commenting on his blog about these two time periods in the early 2000s where somebody was snatching up all of the. Well, he didn't really talk about Playmate Star Trek figures too much. He's talking about Transformers. Somebody is going around, and I did the Playmates once too, the same way. Snatched up a bunch of Star Trek Playmates figures. Whole boxes and boxes of them. So I wanted to paint some of them to look like my Chimera figures from Starship Locations. So I painted a bunch of them. But same thing with the Jetfires. I had a bunch of Skyfires. I wanted to get every used Skyfire I could find, and then make a fleet of them to be in the Rebels story in the later episodes, because it was 2005, 2004, 2005. I wanted to get the Rebels, put the Rebels together, so that we could film a movie that we didn't get to for another 10 years. Finally did, but yes. Oh yeah, there's another thing we did, and we did that, and DJ Omega was commenting on the this one guy that just went in there called Carda. I kept going in there, named my channel, named my old store. Going in there, he's all, yeah, this Carda guy kept buying up all the Jetfires like for a year. He like bought them all. There weren't any available Jetfires, not even for parts. He must have bought like 50 of them. It's like, yeah, it was about 50. That's about right. Made 24 good ones out of 50 crappy ones. They were very crappy though. Some people commented. One of my more popular videos is some of those Jetfires. And somebody's commenting, how could you paint those? They were worth something. They weren't though. When I got them, they were yellowed and crappy. I painted them to look good. They were not good. They were falling apart. They still are. There's like 15 of them left. But yes, the other story was, yeah, so I was like, yeah, it was probably me on the comments. Yeah. That story's dead. It's gone. It was replaced by Adamicon, the store in last year. But it doesn't have anything on it either. But it's not being run. There's no PayPal for it or anything. What was the other thing? Transformers fun. Recently. Oh yeah. I was mentioning the Sentinels earlier. Robotech the Sentinels. Kind of an impossible thing to do. 65 episode thing. Um, I decided that in 2023, 2024, I was going to tackle the Sentinels, but not do it in the same way the other Sentinel stories were because they didn't really work. So I wrote a wraparound story arcs and then used most of T.L. Ahrens' Testament saga as a backbone of the story, and some other authors' stuff thrown in that was a little similar to T.L. Ahrens, some Sheba and some Stormy and some other Transformers lexicons. And T.L. Ahrens is all, well, you probably don't want to use the dirty ones. Just use the clean ones or cut out the dirty stuff. Oh, yeah, you won't use the dirty ones. He said that to other people, not to me, just in general. This one is a little risque. You may not want to use the dirty, naughty parts. Yeah, I didn't really use them. So, yeah, the Sentinels was... I did the sound. Well, the Robotech people eventually lifted up the moratorium on the Japanese Studio Nue Robotech older stuff. After Carl Makek died, and then Ahmed Ergama got sick and he died. So they're like, okay, we don't care anymore about this weird like moratorium on our thing. We're okay with you guys out there doing Robotech stuff. Yeah, go ahead and do it. So the Sentinels was launched that way. Yeah, so we're gonna do into Sentinels. What we did, it was essentially Transformers Lexicons. Transformers. It's a sequel to the Transformers meets Robotech. Same length, 3 3-hour movies, same length, and it was all these different Testament, mainly Testament. Yeah, T.L. Ahrens' Testament. That's mainly what it was. Because he'd done this Paper Flowers episode that was so much fun that I just had to do the rest of the stuff. It's about half of Testament, though. It's not the whole thing. I'm not doing the other half, because the other half is the naughty bits. About half of it. And, yeah, all the fun ones. The doppelgangers, the Tolomsky character, all that's him. And made it so the Transformers of lexicons go on ahead with the SDF-3A, because it's a little late, because the Space Bridge saga happened, and pushed the Robotech saga up about a year, and the pandemic happened, and the Zentradi got sick from the pandemic, and they didn't attack the Earth. So the Robotech timeline is different in our timeline, so they didn't attack the Earth. They got sick. And then Masters showed up later, but it wasn't a problem, because they were like, oh, but yes, and yeah, there's a version of Robotech the movie too, the Zorlord stuff. We did the Zorlord stuff too. A better version of Robotech. Yeah, Robotech the movie was odd. It was Megazone 2-3, and they I keep saying that word weird. Remade it into a Robotech story, even though it really wasn't. Yeah. So yeah. No, that's what they did. I did the Sentinels. I did 3 Sentinels movies, and I chose 3 of the planets from the book series. I chose to go to Tyrol, the moon of Phantoma first in the first movie, a remake of the pilot episode of the Sentinels from '87. But the main story was these Transformers who assumed the Master's forms. So they got Transtectors of them as Transformers, the G.I. Joes, as the people, and the Robotech people. And then these are all fan films, by the way, with G.I. Joes and Transformers. They're not. I probably should have pointed that out. Well, fan films with action figures, they're not. Yeah, the G.I. Joes came later. By 2001, we had the G.I. Joes. Sure to get the G.I. Joes. That's another thing we collected a bunch of. Yeah, the G.I. Joes. That too. That was one thing you mentioned. Oh, the G.I. Joes get snatched up everywhere. Yeah, that was me too. So you have a bunch of G.I. Joes. And yeah, so the Sentinels one is Transformers and G.I. Joe, but done as Robotech people and Transformers. And in our version, they're basically the vehicles, because the Veritech Rebel ships kind of don't look that great. In the Alpha and Beta Fighter ones they made were actually crap, even though they were supposed to be special edition super ones. the irony is that the old Henshin Robo ripoff one that I had from the 80s is still in the box and it still works. So they just, when they made those special edition one, masterpiece ones, they weren't masterpieces, they were crap. No, I had a masterpiece one and it fell apart upon just playing with it. I wasn't even trying to transform it. I put it in an episode. I was all, oh my gosh, this Alpha Fighter broke. They were not for kids. The guy did warn me though. He said this is a museum piece. You can't actually play with it. If you're going to build something called masterpiece, you should be able to play with it. Anyway, but yeah. So the Henshin Robo is fine with the box. But yes, the Alpha Fighter. But the other one's kind of a mess, but that one's fine. But the little yellowed, but he's fine. So yeah, the Sentinels thing, and the TL Aaron stuff was usually about these weird bad guys, noirish bad guys on a planet. The noirish bad guys on a planet that were usually doing something dark and sinister, kind of like the Robotech books, so it fit. Instead of the Master, I just replaced what the bad guys were doing for what the Masters were doing on the planet, and the Robotech guys were doing on the planet. It worked surprisingly well. So I was not using the Jack McKinney novels at all. I was using my own thing, and TLF. And yeah, it seemed to work. Tlomsky and the others. The Tlomsky was kind of replacing the gumshoe kind of character that was already in the Robotech saga. With Lang. I just made him Tlomsky instead. It worked, but sure. Yeah, so yeah, and it was young Dana Sterling, young Max, Aurora, and Max, and everybody, and going off into space and seeing the Robotech people, and the first planet they go to is the moon of Tyrol in the first 3-hour movie. And the second 3-hour, they're miniseries. The second one, they go to Hadon 4. They go to the fourth planet of the Hadon system. Find out the Sensor Nebula is actually in the Hadon system, which makes sense. They have some fun there with the darker middle chapter there. And the darker things happen. There's sort of a Cobra Commander like bad guy running things and naughty things. There's space kidnappings, all kinds of stuff. And then in the third one, they go to Aptera, the home world of the Invid, for the final battle. The Robotech people in the Invid. Each story takes place further off in the future than it is now. The story of 2023 was for the first one. Like 2023, 2024. But it took off it was said to be 2025 in the story. So it was said to be a little later. And the second one, I believe, is 2028, somewhere around there, 2028, 2029. The third one would have been 2038, something like that, a little bit later, 37, 38, and then they get back, and it's, yeah. But then there was a Leo Prime Time Lord guy who showed up and helped them. So they did the Voyager thing. So they got back a little earlier than they would have, at 2032 or 2033. So the Invid War never happened. So in this timeline, and then they kind of retconned it back with the Warlord story and all around moving the planet story, and got it kind of convoluted. And then we decided to do the Warlord story and the Masters, and then kick the can back the other way, and we'll do some more fan films. It's all of that minutia is not all that important. You don't need to know all that backstory. It's not like Marvel where you have to know all that. But yeah, that was our fan films. We've done over 40 or 50 episodes, 1 hour, several miniseries. Yeah, we've been doing it since 2020, roughly. So with these particular series, and yeah, we still do it. So enjoy 40th anniversary. This is sort of a recap 40th anniversary thing, but I'm not going to do a special extended 40th anniversary recap talk, because that's kind of what this is. So that's what this is. So this is less making of and more recap of the 40th anniversary. Yeah, so that's what this is. Yeah, so it'll be kind of both. Yeah, since you have no making of footage here, that's what this is. making of, starting production on the unexpected follow-up to the Transformers Rise of the Terrans. Because, yeah, kind of let's set it up for a sequel. So let's do that sequel. Now, here we have, yeah, so let's start this. Yeah. Okay, making of. This is meant to be, and it's the 40th anniversary of the Trans Saga. Anyway, so in making of, it's meant to be a bumper. A beginning of the story. It's going to be the beginning of the story. That's what this is going to be. So let's do this without adding any more fanfare. Let's just do this.